Hello, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast. And we are excited to be with you today. I am joined, as I am each and every Sunday, by my dear friend Matt Hladek. He is the editor and publisher of thespun.com. He's been joining me now for a long, long time every week to go around the world of football in general and to talk about it all. And he's back again this Sunday. And Matt, I want to start with Pete Carroll, who, and I'm not saying this because I cover the Raiders, I'm saying it because it's truthful. The disrespect thrown at him nationally, and I understand. Well, I'm going to get into that in a minute, but it's just fascinating to me. So at the Super Bowl, I was talking to a very well known NFL person, and I said, I am stunned at how little respect he's getting. And the guy said to me, he said, well, he goes, I agree with you. He said, but the Raiders have lost for so long. I don't think the respect is geared towards Pete Carroll as much as it is the Raiders. Now, I want to make this clear. He agreed that the disrespect was there. So it wasn't like he's a Raider hater because he's not. Um, but I thought that was fascinating. How much of the lack of respect for Pete Carroll has to do with the fact that the Raiders have lost, and how much is it because of his age?
I think, listen, there's no way to fully quantify this stuff, but I think I would agree with that person. I think a lot of it is kind of just the Raiders having lost a lot over the years, and the fact that they made a bunch of different coaching changes, and there's been some sort of lack of direction, it seems, recently. Um, Listen, I think people respect a lot of what he did. I think I remember when the hire news broke, there was people saying, wow, that's to get someone with his resume, it is a good fit for the Raiders. But I do think that some of the lack of respect, or the lack of hype, so to speak, about it kind of comes more from the organization and its track record than it is about Pete himself. Obviously, listen, there's always concerns when you hire an older coach, but it's not like this is a guy who was out of football for, half a decade or more. He last coached in 2023, and he spent last year in an advisory role with the Seahawks. And he's also, by all accounts, a young for his age. So I think most of it is a little bit more geared toward, it's the Raiders have lost a lot, and it's a really tough division with the Chiefs, a Broncos team that seems like it's on the come up with Sean Payton, and a Chargers team that also made the playoffs and look, we know what Jim Harbaugh is capable of. So I think that's really more where it comes from.
All right, so let's talk. We're going to talk about the 7 head coach hires in the NFL this year. Because I think they're all, and we're just going to go through them, and I want you to tell me how you grade them. Let's start with with Ben Johnson. He goes to the Bears. Now, I'm going to tell you, I have, and you know this, and you can tell the listeners this because we've been doing this for so long. I have a philosophy that there are certain franchises where coaches don't go to learn how to be a head coach. And there are some places I think it's perfectly acceptable to go get a coach who's going to learn. Okay, I have no issue with that. Then I think there are some franchises that are completely iconic, and I think the Raiders are one of those. I think the Dallas is one of those. I think the Giants are one of those. I don't think the Jets are. But where you know what, you got to get somebody with experience, because it is one of those franchises that when they're good, the NFL is good. I have no problem with Chicago going and getting a first year coach. Ben Johnson, I know several people that know him. Absolutely, he is a top-notch human being. Great husband, great father. He is a awesome offensive mind. The drawbacks with him is like Josh McDaniels, who I know personally, great dad, great husband, great offensive mind. He is not a good head coach. He is almost too uh,
Hyper focused.
introverted.
Introvert. Oh, introvert.
No,
Okay.
hyper focused is a good one, but he's also very introverted. And you got to be a leader of men as a head coach. You could see some head coaches who are not real good at X's and O's, but they're great as the leader. They're great as the head man. And that's not what you see with Ben. Now, it doesn't mean he can't be that. It just means he hasn't demonstrated that. I think Ben Johnson is a good hire, a solid hire. I'm willing to absolutely give this one an A minus because I don't think you can be an A if you're not already proven. But I will give it an A minus because of his offensive prowess and everything else. But I think it was a very good hire by the Bears. I'd love your thoughts on Ben Johnson.
I'm in that A minus B plus range for it too. I think that it's obviously, a really, they have a young quarterback. They drafted number 1 overall. They want to, if that franchise is going to be successful in the next couple of years, it's going to be because they get Caleb Williams looking and playing like a star. So they went and got a guy from, who's familiar with the Bears. I think that also is a benefit. You weaken a division rival by taking away their offensive coordinator, did such a great job with the Lions, and the Lions have been the best team in that division the last couple of years. So I think it's in that A minus B plus range. Again, I had said to you, I thought that a couple of teams that were hiring this cycle needed guys with experience because they've had culture problems or problems losing for a while. So I think the Bears would have been best served with somebody who had done it before. But when the options weren't necessarily there for that, and I think when they, going with a first-year guy, they did as well as possible. And I think it does show, again, the proof's going to be in the pudding, but it does show that there are people out there that believe in the direction of the Bears or believe that there's, a little bit of a possibility there to be uncovered.
Now, one of the things, Matt, that I think's important, I would not have given this an A minus higher had he not come from a division rival that was holding you back, which was the Lions. Had he come from Philly, I would have given this a B plus because I don't think you can get in the A range without experience. But the fact that they're really sending a crippling blow to the Lions, to me, is what boosted that one. Then we're going to get to Mike Vrabel. And Mike's a winner, and so I think it's a culture fit with New England. I love everything about it. Now, Mike has struggled with developing quarterback. Someone says, but listen, he had a quarterback in Tennessee for a long time, right? Who once he got there really didn't continue to go up the ladder. So I think it fits culturally. He's from there. He knows the place, talking about the franchise, not the geographic region. He is a winner. I like his style. I'm going to give this hire an A minus. Again, for a lot of answers, he's not won big, meaning there's no Super Bowls there, and but because of the culture fit and everything else, I'm willing to give it an A minus with the experience. I'm fine A minus for Mike Vrabel.
I'm okay with that too. A minus, again, A minus B plus range. I think that he is, again, he's not a guy who has won Super Bowls in Tennessee, but he did get to an AFC title game. He did have them as the number 1 seed in the AFC, a different season. New England, they only gave Gerard Mayo 1 year there. But now I think the one good thing about picking Vrabel as a successor is I don't think he's going to be intimidated by trying to right the ship there and by all that Bill Belichick accomplished, because he was part of that as a player for New England. So he knows, what it takes to win up there. Again, I do understand the concern because of, the quarterback development. They have a guy, Drake May, who's I think has the potential to be one of the best in the league, depending on how his career trajectory goes. But I think that it's a really solid hire. I think that when you look at the AFC East, the Bills are by far the class of the division. And I'm not saying they're going to win a division every single year he's there, but I think as long as Josh Allen is there, they're going to be that team to beat for the most part. But beyond that, there's room for somebody to step up and seize that second spot and be a playoff team. And I think that in order to get to that level, the Patriots needed a baseline kind of competency, and I think Vrabel brings that.
Let's talk about Liam Coen. Now, a little bit of insight here. The Jaguars were negotiating and had Patrick Graham in the building. They were going to hire Patrick Graham. Now, Liam Coen was their first choice because they've got a quarterback. They've sunk $250 million. And actually, Ben Johnson was, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Coen wasn't going to come because they unexplained, nonsensically kept Bulky, which makes zero sense to me. And when he called back, they're in the middle of interviewing Patrick Graham and said, I'll take it if Bulky's gone. Patrick lost out. So you get Liam Coen, good guy. I know a couple of people that actually know him really well that really like him personally. They think he's a good coach. He is a little bit different than Ben Johnson. He's not an introvert. Very well respected offensive mind. Good husband, good dad, all the solid things you got to have in your locker room. But to me, he's very inexperienced to now be given the head of a franchise where you got $250 million quarterback putting your first staff together. I have no problem because Jacksonville is a place first year coaches go to learn how to coach. I have no problem with that. I just think there were some options out there for Jacksonville. Had they gotten rid of Bulky, I think they would have had a chance at Ben Johnson. I think there are some other guys up the food chain that they could have gotten that could have done a lot more for that franchise that desperately needs somebody to take it and take the wheel and lead it. I'm just not sold on this. I just, Liam Coen, I hope he does well. Again, the people I know that know him really like him, but I think there were some better hires that this franchise needed. And now you still don't have a general manager who, whether you say it or not, is going to work for your head coach, a first year coach. This is nonsensical to me. I'm giving this a C minus to C. I'm going to be nice and say C, but I don't think this was a good move by the Jags at all.
I'm a little bit more generous, I think, there, just because I do like the offensive fit there, and I think that it's a division where you don't necessarily need to hire a slam dunk head coach to have your team be a factor. Even though I'm a big fan of DeMeco Ryans in Texas, in Houston. I'll give it a B minus. I think it's a B minus to me, because I think that when they couldn't get Ben Johnson and they were never getting a Vrabel, and Bill Belichick, who had been linked there throughout, the rumor process in the fall, had already signed on with UNC. I think
they could have had Belichick. I'm just going to leave it there, and I'm not saying that guessing. They could have had Belichick.
Well, the issue, obviously the process that led to them keeping Trent Baalke at first was an F. They had to know, they should have known that was going to limit their candidate pool, and it almost crippled them because the guy that they wanted after Ben Johnson, Liam Coen, almost didn't come until they changed their minds when he said he'd come without Trent Baalke. I'll give it a B minus. I think that, listen, and that's probably a little generous, but I am intrigued to see what he could do there with that offense. It's always a struggle for first-time head coaches, or there's always that unknown factor. But like you said, going to a division that doesn't typically have, a powerhouse team, and it is a place where you might learn on the job, is fine. The reason why I can't go higher than that is, like you said, I think Jacksonville needs a guy like a Belichick or like Tom Coughlin when he was there at the beginning of that franchise's existence when they went to 2 AFC title games. Somebody that's going to kind of take the reins and really give it a direction. And I don't know if Liam Cohen's ready to do that just yet.
All right, let's talk about Kellen Moore to the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
I love this hire. I have tremendous respect for Kellen Moore. He's been around the game. He's played it. I mean, there's nothing Kellen Moore. Again, the Saints are a franchise. You can go there and learn. They're going to give them time. I really like this hire. I'm giving this a B plus. And again, I, I like the hire more than some others,
Mhm.
but it's a little bit lower ranking just because he hasn't he hasn't had that head coaching experience. So I'm giving him a B plus.
Right, and I think that it'll be a little bit tough with that situation with how they're going to manage their cap and their roster in the coming years. The process to hire him was a little circuitous. Like they interviewed a bunch of different guys, and they were the last team to fill it. Although they were obviously pretty much
Waiting.
they were waiting for him for the last 2 weeks. Everyone knew it pretty much from when the point of when the Eagles won the NFC. Um, listen, I'm intrigued by it. I am. I think that he is a very good young offensive mind. I think that what he was able to do in Dallas, even before he came to Philly, was impressive. Obviously, in Philly, he had great personnel. I mean, an
Mhm.
all-world offensive line, an all-pro running back, great receivers, an underrated quarterback. I mean, tight end. So he got a lot to work with, but I think he did a great job of giving it, establishing that identity and making them one of the most consistent offenses in the league. I think it's a B plus. It's definitely a B. I could be talked into a B plus here. I think that it's a really solid hire. Again, I think it's a place where you can be a first time head coach, and you look at the last guy they had who was a retread in Dennis Allen. It wasn't a good fit as a head coach. So
Right.
I think overall, I think the process was okay, and I think that it will be, time will tell. But I have no problem with that hire. I think it's a B plus.
Now I'm going to give you a hire that I love. I love this hire. Um, I really like this man personally. Uh, Again, I like who he is away from the football field. I like him personally. I think he is a great coach. He is a no nonsense um, culture change. The only thing I hate about it is the team that hired him
I knew where you were going.
because they are a clown show. And one of the things that irritates me is years ago, Butch Jones, who you know is one of my best friends, he's coaching at Cincinnati for the Bearcats, and he turns down the Colorado Buffaloes because he just didn't think it was a fit where he was supposed to go. And then Tennessee called and threw massive money at him. And he gets there, and Tennessee has a lot of issues. I mean, here the guy is winning. He's got the number one recruiting class in America, and they're calling for him to get fired. It just was nuts. And so to me, it's not just a guy getting a job. It's sometimes you got to be picky. And credit Ben Johnson. Credit Ben Johnson, who clearly showed you wait for the right job. I think Aaron Glenn looked at this. He said, listen, I'm in my early 50s. I may not get another shot. Aaron Glenn takes the Jets. I love the hire, but to me, the organization is a clown show. I am going to give this hire. Now, the fact that they got him is a B plus, but because of the organization and everything else, I can't give it a B plus because I don't think it's going to work. And I don't think, and when it fails, I don't think it's going to have anything to do with Aaron Glenn. I think it's just, and I know you're a Giant fan, so I'm preaching to the choir here, but tell me, where am I wrong?
Well, the Giants haven't exactly been a step up from the Jets in recent years, but no, I don't disagree with your assessment of the Jets organization in general. I think that, and I said this on the air, I think the Jets would have been a place that would have been perfect to hire someone who's done it before. I think that it is when you have an organization that's a mess, that has lost a lot, I think you need somebody with a track record to come in and give it stability and take the reins. That's why I thought Mike Vrabel would have been perfect, but he was never going there because he was always locked in on New England. Once that happens,
I disagree. I think he would have taken the Raiders If he had everything was equal, he would have gone to the desert, not New England. And listen, I am sure he would disagree with that now because he would
Right.
have to. I am telling you, he would have come to the Raiders.
Either way, he was never going to the Jets. So, and with that being said, I think that I got to give the hire a B. I know some of my friends who are Jets fans. Some think it's a solid enough hire under the circumstances. Some don't like it at all because he's a first-year head coach and he doesn't have an offensive background, and they constantly hire guys with defensive backgrounds. They've been doing it for like 25 years, basically, at this point. And the staff is a little inexperienced. It's guys who are kind of in some new positions or, roles they haven't done much before. So there's concerns there. What I do like about Aaron Glenn is that, and it's one of the reasons why I think he took the Jets job, is I think he looks at it as a challenge, and I think he looks at it as a possibility where he can win, because when he was a player for the Jets, they were pretty good. They went to an AFC title game under Bill Parcells. They were in the playoffs, I think, a couple of other times when Aaron Glenn was there, or in playoff contention. So it's not like they were, this laughing stock at that point. When he first got there with Rich Kotite, they were. But after Parcells came in for the second half of his tenure with the Jets, Aaron Glenn, he played with some pretty good teams. So I think he's seen what it can look like when it's working. And I think he has a strong belief in himself to be able to turn it around. Winning the press conference only means so much. But I did like the fact that he said, we're a Jet and we're built for this. And he added a little colorful language in there too, which was good for the New York market. I do think in order to succeed. Now, listen, Robert Saleh came in all gas, no brakes. He kind of had that, and it didn't work. You could get swallowed up by the organization and by the market. That could happen very well. But I do think you need sort of that edge to you to win with, to take that job. Adam Gase didn't have it. Todd Bowles, excellent defensive coordinator and a good underrated head coach, I think, with the Bucs, but he wasn't really a fit, I think, with the Jets. So I'm interested to see how Aaron Glenn turns out. I'm going to give it a B higher. If it fails, it could fail for a number of reasons. So, yeah. And the Jets could definitely be the biggest one.
I'm sorry. I was talking to a very successful NFL head coach. He's done. He doesn't want to coach anymore. And I was talking to him about the Jets job, and he said to me, because I told him my theory that there are some teams that you don't hire a first-year coach, which he totally agreed, by the way. And he goes, what he brought up, what do you think of the Jets? I said, well, I think you have to hire because I can't picture anyone like you willing to go there. His exact words, bingo. And he goes, guys like me don't want to go there. And you know what? He goes, why did Bill work? Because they gave Bill total control. They're not doing that ever again. So it won't work. Next, a hire I just don't like. It was the worst hire in the cycle. Brian Schottenheimer at Dallas. Dallas is not a team which goes and gets first-year guys, in my opinion. You don't do that there. They're one of those iconic places where they should have gone out and said, we're getting Vrabel, or we're going to go get Bill, or whatever. But they have proven, without a Bill Parcells or a Jimmy Johnson, a strong arm to Jerry Jones, they're not winning. This is going to be a hired to get fired situation. It's not as much a slam on Brian Schottenheimer as it is on the organization, but it just literally makes no sense to me, giving it a C minus. And this is about the organization. That is a pressure cooker. You do not bring this guy in. And listen, everybody talks about great guy, but you're hiring Brian, not Marty. No sense to me here whatsoever. Love your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we never know for sure how hires are going to pan out, but if you look at everything, that went into this, the process was flawed. I don't know if Jerry thought that McCarthy was just going to stay on at that point, and then he had a pivot when he realized he wasn't. McCarthy called his bluff and said, "Nah, I'm going to, look elsewhere." So, they pivot to, it was a mess of a coaching search. Now you're bringing in a guy from within, so it looks even sloppier. You just kind of promote from within. He's never been a head coach. His track record as a coordinator is up and down. To say the least. Not saying he doesn't know football. He definitely does. Not saying he hasn't put together a pretty interesting staff, because I think his coaching staff he's hired is pretty good so far. And that will be what ultimately saves him. But in terms of the process, in terms of what I think the Cowboys need, in terms of who the Cowboys are, this hire just didn't make sense. I mean, you're bringing in a guy from within who's never been a head coach before. And Dallas, listen, they went 7-10 last year. Dak Prescott got hurt. They were a mess. They had 3 straight 12-5 seasons before that. This isn't a team that's bereft of talent, that just is at the bottom of the barrel of the league. They just don't win when it counts. And there's something missing there which prevents that. But I don't think Brian Schottenheimer is the guy to find that, to dig that out. I think it has to be somebody, like you said, who has that sort of ability to make it their own and kind of deal with Jerry Jones. Because as long as you have a Brian Schottenheimer, you're assured that Jerry is the star and the main focus of the show. And I don't think that's good for the Cowboys. Do they still have talent? Yeah. Could they make the playoffs? Sure. But I don't think it's a good, to get over that hump that they've been at for almost 3 decades. I don't think this is the guy to do it. I would say it's a C-, C, maybe.
All right. We've already talked about Pete Carroll at length. I give it an absolute A+. I'm going to tell you why I did. People say, but he's 73. Yup. But go look at how many coaches are there for 10 years anyways. So that to me is an irrelevant argument. He's a winner. He's put together an amazing staff. I mean, to get Chip Kelly, to keep Patrick Graham, to keep Robbie Leonard, you keep Joe Philbin, all of it. All of it. I think he's done a tremendous job. On top of it, you get a proven Hall of Fame coach. This is a no-brainer for me, the Raiders won. And let's face it, Raider fans tired of winning off-season trophies. And I don't blame them. But I think this, of the 7 hires, this was clearly the best. Your opinion?
Yeah, I said it when they made the hire that I thought it was a great hire for them. I think, and I keep bringing up these words when I talk about teams that have struggled for a while, baseline competency. You need a baseline competency. You need a foundation to say, hey, we can do this. Maybe we're not at the level of these teams, but we are able to do this, and this is what we are, and this is what we have to fall back on. And I think that Mike Vrabel would have provided that, and I think that Pete Carroll provides that. That's why I think it was good they got somebody with experience. He certainly brings a lot of it. He's not going to be intimidated by coaching against Andy Reid and Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh and going against those types of teams and head coaches. He knows what it takes to win. He's shown, that he can kind of adapt a little bit, and he's not just going to be, somebody who is going to, he's 73 and he's completely stuck. He's a young 73, like you said. And listen, if he stays 4 or 5 years and says, listen, I think, I'm ready to hang him up. If he does his job, then you're in a much better place 4 or 5 years down the road than you are right now. Maybe that means, a couple playoff berths, or maybe that means you found your franchise quarterback, and the next guy is ready to take it to the next level. So I think it was a great hire. I don't know if I could give any hire an A+ just because we're kind of looking, even though we're looking at the process, we're looking at hypothetical, but I think it's an A-. It's right there for me. I thought it was one of the smarter hires of the cycle. And again, listen, got to see how it plays out. But I think that you can't criticize the Raiders for the process they went through and the hire they made in the moment.
I agree. All right. He's the one and only, the great Matt Halatic. Matt, tell him how to find you on social media.
Sure. You can find me on X or Twitter at Matt Haladik 919, at MATTHLADIK 919. And, the offseason is about to heat up. So there'll be some good talking ball over there. And there'll be probably some March Madness mixed in as well with college basketball.
Thank you.